The story we're about to share was sent to us by Asta. Asta, who is now married, was only 8 years old when this incident took place, and it involved her mother, who became possessed. Without wasting any time, let's dive into the story. Asta told us that her parents had rented a house in Lalbagh, Delhi. Her father worked for a company, and her mother was a housewife. At first, everything seemed fine after they moved into the new house. But after 5 to 10 days, Asta's mother began seeing strange figures standing by the window at night, like shadows staring at her. She told her husband, Asta's father, about these entities she saw at night, but he brushed it off, joking that she was overthinking and having nightmares. He dismissed her concerns as mere imagination, something that many of us have experienced when no one believes us about such things. Welcome to Horror Stories. I'm Ankur Pundit, and on this channel I bring you real-life paranormal incidents and activities shared by those who have experienced them firsthand. Your comments are our motivation, so please keep them coming. Now let's resume back to story. As time passed, Asta's mother's health started deteriorating. One day, she told her husband that she felt extremely unwell. However, her father, unable to take time off work, suggested she visit a doctor and let him know what the diagnosis was. Asta explained that her mother visited Rao Clinic at Safdarjung Enclave. The doctor checked her nerves and found them normal, but her health was still worsening. The doctor called the auto driver who had brought her to the clinic and asked if anyone had accompanied her. The driver said no. She had come alone but had been mumbling and talking to herself throughout the ride. Back in the 2000s, doctors sometimes believed in supernatural influences. This doctor suspected something unusual and advised the driver to drop her off at home, telling Asta's mother to return the next day with her husband. When Asta's parents went to the doctor, he told them that while her nerves were fine, something was off and they should consult someone else, as things didn't seem normal. That night, around 1:30 or 2 a.m., Asta's mother suddenly got up and ran towards the gate. Her father woke up, alarmed, and saw her trying to run outside. He grabbed her and pulled her back into the bed, literally pinning her down. Asta, who was just a child at the time, was terrified by all of this. Her father demanded to know who was controlling his wife, and a man's voice came from her mother, saying, "I am her friend. I've come to meet her. I have certain desires." Asta's father, shocked and frightened, asked what the spirit wanted in exchange for leaving his wife. The spirit said he wanted Will's cigarettes, a specific rum called XXX, and goat meat. Asta's father was horrified, realizing that this was an evil spirit possessing his wife. Asta, only 8 years old at the time, was scared out of her mind. You can imagine what it would be like for a child to witness her mother like this and feel so helpless. Asta told us this part of the story through a recording. The next day, Asta's father discussed the situation with some friends, explaining that an evil spirit had possessed his wife. Someone suggested they visit a tantric priest near Netaji Subha's palace. This tantric, who was well known and believed to channel divine powers, agreed to help. Upon seeing Asta's mother, he confirmed that something was wrong and that a spirit was controlling her. He advised Asta's father on a solution, saying, "Tonight, I'll perform a ritual in your house. You must take your wife to the rooftop and stay there. During the ritual, she will try to make excuses to escape, but don't let her go." That night, the tantric began the ritual downstairs while Asta's father, along with some uncles and relatives, sat with Asta's mother on the rooftop. As the ritual progressed, smoke filled the air, and the spirit took control of her again. She began jumping around and trying to escape, but they held her down. The spirit began pleading, "Let me go. I won't come back. I'll leave her alone." But the tantric had warned them not to let go until the ritual was complete. After the ritual was finished, Asta's mother fainted. The tantric sprinkled holy water on her and chanted mantras, giving her a talisman to wear. He also warned Asta's father that they needed to leave the house within 15 days, or the situation would worsen. Asta's mother was freed from the possession, But there was one final confrontation during the ritual. Astha's father had asked the spirit who it was and why it had possessed his wife. The spirit replied, "I am Bhiarav. My parents burned me to death in the bathroom next to the room on the second floor. This woman unknowingly used the same spot where I had died. This upset me greatly, and I took over her body." The priest eventually finished the ritual, and everything seemed fine. Before leaving, however, a similar incident happened on the first floor involving a child. The parents of a 3 to 4-year-old boy living on the first floor noticed that he would get possessed at night and somehow end up on the roof, even though he couldn't walk properly. My mother would sometimes take him back downstairs, and they later discovered that the boy was being possessed by the spirit of a woman. When the priest was called again and tried to perform a cleansing ritual, the woman's spirit spoke through the boy, saying that her husband had been killed on the second floor and that she had been burned alive on the first floor. Eventually, everyone left that house because strange things kept happening, and the neighbors started hearing loud crying and screaming at night. The house was completely abandoned, and no one has had the courage to live there again. Despite the place being cleansed, those who dared to live there were haunted. You can imagine how terrifying it would be to live in a house where you think you're alone, but these entities could possess you at any time. What's even scarier is the number of people who have shared similar stories with me, telling me that something happened to them, and their parents even captured their strange behavior on video. Yet, they have no memory of these events. This just proves that when you're possessed, you don't even know what you're doing, and it can be shocking to see what has been captured. Astha G is now married with children, and she lives in Delhi. I didn't ask too much about her parents, but I hope they're doing well. Friends, if any of you have had a similar incident or if it's happened to your relatives, feel free to share your story with me, and I'll narrate it. Until then, stay tuned to the channel. This incident happened around 2000 when I was 7 or 8 years old. My parents rented a room in Lalbagh, Delhi. After living there for 15 to 20 days, my mother started seeing 2 or 3 faces outside the window, and she felt disturbed while trying to sleep. She told my father about it, but he didn't believe her. Soon after, my mother became ill. My father told her to visit the doctor as he didn't have time to take her himself. She went to see a doctor alone. The doctor said my mother had a fever, but her pulse was normal. The doctor called the rickshaw driver who had brought my mother and asked if someone had accompanied her. The driver said no. She had come alone and had been mumbling to herself the whole way. The doctor then asked my mother to come back the next day with her husband. The next day, my father took my mother to the doctor, who again said that while her pulse was normal, something else seemed wrong, and she should be taken to someone else for further help. The doctor's name was Rao, and he had a clinic nearby. My father still didn't believe it, but one night, my mother got up and started walking out of the house. My father called out to her, asking where she was going, but she didn't answer. When he tried to stop her, she pushed him away. He quickly grabbed her and put her back on the bed. When he asked who she was, my mother started laughing loudly. Her voice changed and became very deep, and she said, "I'm her friend, and I've come to meet her." My father asked, "Where do you come from?" The entity replied, "I come to meet her every day." My father then asked, "What will it take for you to leave her?" The entity said it wanted Will's cigarettes, XXX rum, and goat meat. My father agreed to give these things the next day and asked the spirit to leave for now. The next day, my father went to see a tantric, a spiritual healer who lived in Netaji Nagar. The tantric advised my father on what to do. That night, my mother was taken to the roof with my uncle while the tantric performed a ritual downstairs. As the smoke from the ritual started rising, the spirit came into my mother, and she began to jump and scream. Everyone held her down. My father asked the spirit who it was, and it replied, "My name is Bhiarav. My in-laws killed me on Holi by setting me on fire." Bhiarav explained that he had been killed near the water tap, and my mother had used the bathroom in that same spot, which angered him and caused him to possess her. He revealed this information through my mother's body. The tantric had warned not to let go until the ritual was complete, or the spirit would cause more harm. Finally, after 101 days of the ritual, the spirit left my mother. We quickly found a new place to live in Jalbagh and moved out. Later, we learned that on the lower floor of that same house, a family had burned their daughter-in-law alive. The spirit of that woman used to possess a child on the first floor, causing the child to sleepwalk onto the roof. One day, my mother found the child and brought him back downstairs, where the child's grandmother explained that strange things had been happening since they moved into that room. Eventually, the entire building was abandoned, and no one dared to live there anymore. Even though we moved out years ago, we still don't know what the condition of that house is now. At the time, living with my mother was terrifying. She wouldn't talk, laugh, or behave like herself. It was as if she had become a ghost herself. Key learning: possession can come without warning, and the entities that take control can be triggered by even the smallest innocent actions. It's a chilling reminder to respect the unknown and avoid places with dark histories. This story teaches us that spirits can cling to places of deep trauma, and breaking free from their hold requires both spiritual and emotional strength. Finally, before leaving, I request you all to please support my channel, subscribe Horror Stories, and turn on the bell notification so you get the latest video updates first. Stay tuned to the channel until the next video. Thank you.